Welcome back to the Booze Free Babes podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Frazier, and today we have our very own chiropractor, Jesse Ross. He is with My Chiro IQ, experienced chiropractor for 30 years from the Charleston area, currently serving Mount Pleasant. Also graduated with honors from the College of Charleston and the Sherman Chiropractic College. Here's a fun tip. Dr. Ross was inspired to pursue chiropractic after seeing it on a 70s TV show called That's Incredible. And then, driven by a passion for healing and a dedicated commitment to his patients, Dr. Ross offers education and understanding regarding the human body's capacity for healing. His unique practice utilizes new technology, including energy and frequencies, combined with his healing hands to enhance healing, balance stress, and reduce anxiety. Drawing on the communication skills honed in by his large Italian family, he delivers care with wisdom, warmth, and heartfelt dedication, guiding patients to embody the powerful truth that your body should feel like home. And let's not forget to mention that Dr. Ross is also the father of 5 sons. That must have been a very active household for you. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ross. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for the intro. I'm going to have to marry the person who wrote that.
Is Mimi responsible for that?
Yeah, Mimi's wonderful words wrote that. Yes.
Oh,
she sees
awesome.
me when I'm not looking.
Love that. I know it takes a team effort. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We are so excited to have you. And just for the listeners out there, I have to share this fun little tidbit that Dr. Ross is actually the first male that we've interviewed on the podcast. So right on. All right. I'm so excited. I am very excited to dive into your work and your practice and hear about the healing modalities that you offer to our community here in Charleston.
Yeah, it's an exciting place that after 30 years I've morphed and changed my practice over and over based on truths that I would realize over time. And it's been very exciting to witness my patients healing themselves. You know, there's a time in which you're taught all these protocols and ways to look at it and how science sees your body. But, you know, the longer you're in practice, being the observer, you see how very little we need to do because your body is made so perfectly. So I'm usually just a catalyst in the reaction and helping people to feel safe in their body while they heal themselves.
That is really powerful. And as, you know, being a female in recovery myself, I think safety is a huge thing, being safe in our own skin. And there's probably many times throughout at least my drinking career that I didn't feel like I was safe in my own skin. So let's lean into that a little bit, if you don't mind. Can you share some examples with us and how you've helped guide your clients home to themselves within their own skin?
You know, we do use technology not only to not treat somebody's disease, but assist how well functioning their body already is. The technology isn't the cure. The technology is the catalyst. So remember, you know, whether you believe in the Big Bang or God spoke his name and the whole universe was created, 100% block of matter. I like the second story better. But, you know, the matter which we are made of is theoretical. And you know what theo means? It means God. Okay, so I like to bring that
God, and I was like, I do not want to get that wrong right now. That would be really embarrassing. Thank you for answering it, and I'm tracking. Keep going. I love it.
I could already tell that you knew, and I seriously, whenever I bring that question up to my patients, it's like I know they know, and they're afraid to say it. But it's almost too exciting and true, or exciting to be true. But if you're made of this God particle, and theo means God, then not only are you indivisible from God, you are indivisible from science.
That's very profound.
If it is, well, I mean, it's true. I mean, how do all these functions simultaneously happen within a body. And we're not just saying, hey, my liver works, my kidney works. We're talking about the hundreds of functions every organ and tissue serves. So, the body is literally made of science. And how do we know that? Because, we've been through trillions and trillions of cycles. Every species has. No species has a hierarchy of disease except humans. And we call it illness, right? But I think it's interesting over time, I've been studying the little words we use all the time, illness and illusion. I thought it was interesting. They have such a similar root. And if our body is made of science, then how do we measure? How do we function? Well, we know the brain runs the body, okay? But what is that one thing that ties in my mind all disease the same? It kind of makes it all the same, and it's the simplicity of the nervous system. If you are made of science, then as you take data in, what is the biggest part of your brain? And I'll bet
the hippocampus, is that like the director, the choir director, I call it?
Yeah, you are exactly right. When you get a stimulus, the hippocampus is going to direct the signals. Now, meanwhile, the biggest part of your brain is the frontal lobe. Okay. Now, what do you know about the frontal lobe? Well, it does one thing. We call it three different things, but it's only one thing. The three different things we call it is sensory, emotions, and feelings. All of them are the same. They're not three different things. They're all the same. So isn't that interesting that the biggest part of your brain is about emotions?
Absorbing this right now because I'm like, that is fascinating to me, and it makes sense, right? And then we talk about our emotions, how they attach to our nervous system, and how our nervous system can also impact emotion and vice versa. So I'm curious to hear about that. And I think if I can take you down a path, it sounds like if we can allude to the fact that we're regulating our nervous system, then we can also regulate the way that we feel and the way that we show up. Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
And that's exactly right. Whether it is that I had cancer or alcoholism, or I'm a workaholic, or let's say I just got pregnant. Thank you very much. Think about a pregnant lady who's like, I don't know why. I don't like pickles, never ate them, never was attracted to them. Now I want a pickle. Okay. So there's something in the nervous system that when it measures the environment and yourself, the inside of your environment, that it's trying to equalize the inside of your body with the measurement of the outside environment. So the biggest part of your brain is about emotions. It senses, it feels. And even emotions, as you know, they are reflexes. Right. So based on our experience and the DNA that we're gifted with when we come into this realm, remember, we have DNA when we come in, and it also carries emotional programs that may have come from our parents that if they weren't even on Earth, someone who's raising another family's kids might say, oh my God, they never met and look how they're behaving. So, the point is this DNA, not only are you equipped with it when you come in, but you also write it from the point you're born for the rest of your life.
Okay, so we rewrite our DNA, we write new DNA through life experience once we're born, and then we inherited our familial traits through the DNA, including potentially emotional traumas and things like that can carry over maternally, right?
Exactly. So that being said, now let's look at, AI. Okay. They want to connect us with AI, and all AI is really doing is taking all the known human error information, compressing it, and spitting it out faster than we can. I mean, it's just taking more human stuff, as flawed as it is, and it's condensing it, and it sounds brilliant. But when you consider that our software, I like to call it God's perfect operating software that we're born with. If we're eternal and indivisible from God, and this cycle of humans have been through, or the species of humans have been through trillions of cycles. One might accept that the software has to be perfect, or would have probably taken ourselves out. And if we can accept that we're made of the perfection of overlapping sciences, many sciences we don't even know about, then and we're writing our DNA, well, that sounds like a flawless system to us. So here we are in the third dimension and in duality, and we're measuring the good and the bad, the positive and the negative, the male and the female, right? The good and the evil. So based on just those two bumpers, we measure with that frontal lobe and we break up the signal. It's not just anger that we feel, it's all the details within that subject matter. And when we see a pattern developing, either we're going to access the old DNA if we don't have an answer for what's presently going on, or our similar experiences from that point that you're experiencing stress, you dig into what you know in that DNA and you start running a program. Does that make sense? So
Totally
remember,
makes sense.
so just like that pickle situation, based on how powerfully we can feel with that frontal lobe, and it splits the signal into its emotional components. Now, to feel anything, that message has to go in a loop between the brain and an organ, because all the organs are producing the chemistry to feel the feeling of the imperceptible software that you're perceiving the environment with.
It's fascinating. That is fascinating to me. So when you're talking about that organ loop, are you talking about like the connective tissue that connects everything together, like fascia or nervous system?
So that, first, there's an immaterial signal, and you're going to pick it up through your sensory, right? Including bones and even your organs. You're going to feel things from the outside. Okay. So based on how you feel that, then your nervous system, faster than light speed, they estimate, will create an equal and opposite reaction based on how you split that signal emotionally. So that will determine to what ratio those organs are working. Let's take a break there and see what you think. Okay, now, based on that powerful, we'll say, cycle, when you're enduring or you got impacted with a force, like, perhaps when we were much younger to have these conditions, whether it's alcoholism or cancer or whatever, you can get an instant of force that makes an impact or a duration of force. And then based on that pattern or that impact, as you create these cycles of information between the brain cell and your tissue cells, that you develop these reflexes that when similar programs pick up, that you kick in the reflex that in medical science we may be calling alcoholism, autoimmune, this disease and that. But in reality, all, we'll say, symptoms like blood values, vital signs, emotions, if they're equal and opposite reactions, we call that adaptation.
And so it's a response too, right? It's the response. It's how we have either been trained to respond or how our DNA picks up that response that has been embedded in us for centuries, probably, right?
Exactly. And you like any pattern, whether it's alcoholism, narcissism, any of the ways we get traumatized, that we come up with a combination of symptoms that actually makes us feel safe. It doesn't mean everyone can't see it, right? But it makes us feel safe in our body, because remember, the only thing you're aware of is from a nerve ending in. When you're looking at me, even in person, remember, you're making an image of me through your sensory in your head. You're not really seeing me outside your body.
Right. Right. It's my experience and how I visualize you. It's my experience inside my body, how I react, or based on a pattern that I've developed. A couple of things that I picked up on in what you were talking about. One, it reminded me of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. That probably is similar, just talking about how trauma can be stored in our body and that can contribute to that reaction, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say like trauma, if trauma impacts the DNA that we're already rebuilding, then that can too impact how we respond. So the body keeps the score was the one thing that came to my mind when you were talking. And then also when you were talking about patterns or shifts, like intentional shifts, would that be something like a trauma, like a traumatic experience or an event, or something that happened over time? Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure
So
I'm
yeah,
connecting the dots on that one.
well, I'm glad you're clarifying, because I don't mean to be real techie or whatnot, but when God spoke His name, remember there are laws to electromagnetics. Okay, and remember, you run frequencies through the DNA of a brain cell, through the DNA of a tissue cell, and it's a non-ending loop. It's continuous. Okay, so
And that's every
if
cell in our body's connected. Yeah. Okay.
that's every cell, and in a sense, it's kind of like our security, where if we see opportunity, we also have hardwired programs to recognize and pursue. If it comes to a safety thing, then those mechanisms will kick in and guard us. So it comes through these the mechanisms of healing, or what you're doing is the software is adapting the inside of your body for the perception of the outside of the body. So these when
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
so those these patterns that we experience, they say that 93% of our thoughts are the same ones we had yesterday. And that's because I'm a chiropractor. I have the same amount of kids. I have the same bills. I do, there are powerful programs. So based on my past and how I run these loops, I have a sensitivity to things that are threatening to me. And if people have been, and we do, like God made us with an amygdala, which is the fight or flight system. It records those big amplitudes that don't feel good, right? So whenever we run through an incident or something that's similar to something we've been through, then those adjustments to our nervous system so that we can match our environment kick in. Now, if we go through several incidents, or we perceive the world as hostile and threatening, then the same, based on those 93% thoughts, like let's say you're a bodybuilder and I'm a power lifter, and we stand side by side, someone's going to say, okay, I can tell you're a bodybuilder, and just based on how you behave, you're a power lifter. So it's based on that will and choice that God gives us on how we decide to handle that emotional load. And based on that, we'll consume certain, we'll say, nutrients, and certain tissues may work harder than the others. So based on that, it might look like your blood values are off. So your body puts a demand for the energy it would need, and no different than that lady going for a pickle, that if we witness maybe mom and dad having cocktails, and it always seemed like a good thing. So guess what we do? We want to feel good. This is really stressful, and they say it's okay and healthy to have this. So what I've come up with like a theory that when people get addicted to these pills or alcohol, it might look like there was an injury or one incident that created it. And they say that guilt and shame is probably some of the hardest things that we deal with, because it's an underlying, we'll say, construct in the subconscious. And remember, that's where most of my work is. So when people finally find relief through alcohol, or maybe a dopamine-based painkiller, maybe it's not about getting rid of that pain from an incident, or like even if it was emotional, let alone physical. Maybe it's all the things you've ever been through that you finally have quieted a nervous system down. Because when we're sensitive people, and that's in my practice, based on the type of technology I have, I'm attracting empaths. I'm attracting sensitives. And it's because these people have such hyper-developed frontal lobes that the alcoholic group usually or anyone who's trying to numb pain, because remember, pain is emotional simultaneously, that they're trying to calm a complete nervous system down. They're trying to quiet the noise of all they've been through, not just this one thing or the other.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. That is such a huge point to make, that it's not just the one pain. We look at substance use disorder and that is the cure, right? Like that's the cure to our pain. That's how we chose to cure from that emotional pain. And it could be what, we experienced in childhood. It could have been something we experienced yesterday, but accumulation of pain is really what we're seeking relief from. And you hit that so on the head and explained it very clearly. Thank you for explaining that the way that you did. My next question is going to be about the nervous system care. I'd love to take a little deeper dive into the technology that you use to impact, I'm assuming, tapping into that frontal lobe, impacting nervous system, helping calm that nervous system to give us more of that safety and security within our own bodies, so we don't do that knee jerk. I'm speaking mainly about myself, as we usually do when we're talking about things like this, is, that knee jerk reaction of fight or flight, which I know that's like my first signal. And I used this terminology just this past week about an indicator light. Like when we have these strong emotions, that it's actually an indicator of something else that's going on. And are we tracking that? And one, what's the importance of tracking it down to the root? Do we necessarily need to do that? Or do we just deal with that emotion in the moment? Because I've found that if I try to just feel it, it's usually gone in like 60 to 90 seconds. So I'd love to hear your take
Yeah.
on emotion and nervous system care.
Well, first off, yes, a lot of people come in for the technology and help me, or they've heard I can help people with anxiety or autoimmune and these things. And I honestly don't treat any of those things. I have kind of a run on infertility right now. I don't treat that stuff. But here's the point. The phenomenon where if you're unable to have a baby, you adopt, and then all of a sudden you start pumping out babies. So think about that. It didn't take any technology, did it? It was
okay. So if you have the belief system, if you have it deep down in you, embedded in your belief system and your subconscious, that you are incapable of conceiving, and then you have the baby through IVF or whatever, and then you become more receptive to conceiving because your belief changed, right? Is that what you're kind of getting to here? Is it's all about the belief change?
I believe that could be one pathway to a person's success, undoubtedly. But my main emphasis is this: that we all have this amygdala, and what if I was afraid I couldn't get pregnant? What if I were afraid that I couldn't do it? Or what if I were afraid I couldn't stop drinking? Okay, whatever that thing is, remember that fight or flight signal is this wave through your body, all right? And that fear builds up a gradient. Remember, you only have positive and negative charges. Okay, so whenever you build up such a charge in one side of the brain or the other, remember, you have the analytical or the male and the female and the creative. So look at how we try to resolve our problems whenever, whether it was an emotional thing, a breakup in the family, whatever the trauma was. The point is, we go into fixing things. So there becomes this, it becomes imbalance where there's too much of a charge on a certain area. So you get this stuck in this loop when it takes actually balance to resolve the issue. So the technology is, are you with me?
I'm with you. I'm so fascinated by this. Yes.
Yeah, me too. God, like I said, God made us so perfectly. It's really fun to talk about. If anything, I don't need my patients to understand what I'm saying. I need them to get enthused that their body's so perfect. They just have blind faith in their body, like they make a U-turn to go get their iPhone. It's like I can't live without this thing. So in any case, because the universe started over frequencies, Tesla, Einstein say the future of science and medicine is frequencies. It's because, what's going between two pieces of DNA, brain cell and tissue cell, is frequencies. So no difference than we can take our car to a mechanic and they put a chip under your dash and they go, hey, that sound you've been hearing, that's your water pump. That'll be $500 2 days. See you later, right? Or you go to Walmart and you want to try noise canceling headphones and you can listen to everything you want to hear except for that one ping that you're trying to get rid of, right? That's outside here, right? So we have technology that is able to do the same thing within your body. I can measure where your electrical current is flowing that's giving the commands for your blood values and vital signs that is based on your perception of your environment. So we have technology that'll measure very accurately how you're feeling, what part of the brain's lit up, what organ as a result is getting so much electricity. Okay.
Goodness, I gotta try this.
Everybody needs to try it. You know why? I mean, the enthusiasm that I see in you is what all my patients, instead of coming in and being scared the hell of their body and what the heck's going on with them, I'm going, no, you're going to be great. This is easy to fix. As a matter of fact, you're going to make me look good. So there was, then I have another piece of technology that kind of operates the same. It's like a lie detector test. And we simply introduce the wavelengths that identify any piece of matter in the universe, emotions, functions in your body. And as I run them through your body, remember, you're made of DNA. So as I'm running these frequencies through your body, if it doesn't go through your DNA, it ain't yours. So I get a very accurate picture of not only what you perceive as a threat, but also what wavelengths could cancel them out, like noise canceling headphones. If I can do it to your ear, guess what? I can do it to any organ.
Oh my goodness, that is fascinating. Okay, so kind of bring this to full circle here and wrap it up. So the technology that you use is using like those frequencies that, which, I mean, the studies that I have done, frequency absolutely can impact things, right? I love somatics and things like that. So we're taking this frequency, which is basically scanning our DNA, and if it's a fit, great, we pick up on that, and if it's not a fit, then that's not meant for us, period, right? And then what you can do with that technology is you can basically say, okay, it looks like you're not having a good frequency flow in XYZ area that might be impacting why you're seeing an elevated XYZ on your chart. Is that kind of what I'm getting at? Is that you can get it back to a root cause from a cellular level.
So, and even more than a cellular level, okay, like everyone, like I like dealing with things on the cellular level, don't get me wrong. But remember, what even makes a cell? What makes a cell run? It is the software. Okay, remember, no one really has hormone imbalances or blood imbalances because all of us had adaptation. If somebody walks into my practice and they have a spine that's going from side to side, in my education, because no one has more medical education than a chiropractor, okay? So in our education, we could say, hey, that's a horrible scoliosis. But in reality, it is called balance, no different than a live oak would do the counterbalancing itself. Right. So that is the marvel of science. And if medicine's never not been the top cause of bankruptcy, it's because we're treating the symptoms and knocking out the adaptation. So remember, like alcoholism or any condition whatsoever is literally an adaptation. If we clear the nervous system of stress, then what are we self-medicating? Because what are we feeling if we eliminate feelings?
So are you eliminating the feeling overall, or you're just eliminating the reason for a stress response?
Yes.
Yes and yes.
So remember, there's a command from the brain that goes to your tissue that is going to make you uncomfortable if it's fight or flight. If that signal is there long enough, then you'll be able to see the depletion of your body going through the same cycles, using up the same stuff constantly. So in science, we could say, hey, you're depleted of these things, and this is why you have whatever condition. But in reality, it's the software consuming so much. And who knows even to adjust their diet if I'm going to run a marathon or I'm having a bad argument, because you're using different fuels. Does it make sense? So if we can eliminate the software, yeah, if you can noise cancel the loops of that trauma, not that it's stored in your body, it's not. It is part of, the mindset. So it's a part of your software, and it's using your cells, it's using your DNA to adapt you. Because remember, the nervous system is that transducer between the immaterial life and the material life. Okay. And if God uses all for his good and we're using that software, then all of your symptoms, even alcoholism and cancer, is adaptation. And we know that or I feel like I know that, because whenever you eliminate the stimuli that creates the adaptation, it looks like a miracle that goes away, but it's not a miracle. You're made of science. If you don't run that information through your DNA, how are you going to kick out the response?
So it sounds like what we can offer our listeners now is that if they have an opportunity to visit with you, then we're going to get software upgrades. So if we're operating on an operating system, right, then what we're doing is we're going into your office and we're like, tune me up because I need a little bit of an upgrade in XYZ area. I would like to just for a second go down this pathway because I'm currently going through hormone replacement therapy, and anybody that has not tapped into that journey yet, hold on and definitely check it out because it's interesting, and I'm learning so much about myself as I evolve and go through this process. And something that has been coming up for me a lot is the emotional wave, right? And riding that emotional wave during this time frame. So I'm so curious to see. One, I can't wait to experience this for myself. And I'm curious to see how that's going to impact the emotional wave part. Do you have any feedback for women that may have came to visit you for that exact same reason?
So let's say I had a room full of 1,000 people. I don't even know their condition, right? But I do know they all have an amygdala.
And they all have pain of some sort, right? Like everybody has a pain or a trauma or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we live on planet Earth. We're in duality. We're down here to learn those lessons, right? So this instrument is it's an antivirus for your perfect software. So based on your experience, whenever you come in, and I expose you to all the constants that a human being could be exposed to: food groups, emotions, chemistry, or whatever. We'll test you 8 times randomly, and if that information keeps on spiking up, it's a threat every time it comes in, and we tell through your sweat glands, and that's how a lie detector test works. Then we just grab that frequency, and we send that back to you in an infrared laser. So it's just a delivery mechanism. It's not powerful. And if you sat on the beach, if someone told you, I love you, you're going to release your endorphins and kephalins. You're going to take up serotonin and dopamine. So you're going to make a positive reinforcement behind those emotions, those feelings, those frequencies that you're running in that 93% loop. So if I can cancel that loop, if I can make you feel safe when that frequency is around, then you don't need to engage a protective mechanism that in most of science is looked at as symptoms are looked at as bad. Groups of them are looked at as disease, when actually they're all adaptation. So does that help?
It absolutely helps. I like that you pointed out that they are all adaptation. We have a perfect vessel. We have just adapted to our environment. And through those adaptations, that's where you're introducing healing frequencies to create real change that allows us to jump off of the trauma loop and get back into living our lives in a more connected way.
And permanently, because remember, you would have to be the same person with the same DNA to kick in the same response. So remember, we don't change anything about us, even those things we learned to do before we were baked at 7, right? They say by 7 years old, you're baked. So based on the over servitude and how we feel about ourselves and all these things we pick up in that frontal lobe based on when things aren't just perfect at home, then we learn how to create adaptations that make us feel safe in the family unit, or if we were adopted, or what worked in the home doesn't necessarily mean that when we're around other people, they see it with the same reverence as maybe a family member, and that could lead us to these issues that not only make us feel bad about ourselves, then we wind up self-medicating. So it's a cycle that we go through. And on that note, of the people I've taken care of with cancer, and I just want to make this assimilation that there's what they call the Niels Bohr lab, and they study the central nervous system. Okay, and they said the main duty of the brain is to create sound. Now, I made a career of telling everybody it ran the body, and it does. Okay, but if you were sleeping, going through a divorce, you just won $1 million, you always burn 20% of the fuel you put in your body, in your brain. And when you burn 20%, you produce a temperature of 98.6, because whenever those loops are going through your DNA, they create minute heat. Collectively, your body goes to 98.6. That spikes your ATP production. What ATP is the fuel of every cell, and that's how you operate your body. That's the fuel of gasoline. So, and then it creates that pH, which is a very thin veil, 7 to 7.4. Now, here's my point. All these sciences are overlapping. They all have to agree. Nothing can contradict anything. So based on how it is that we're wounded and the value of that stimulus would determine to which tissues most of that electricity, because remember, frequencies are electricity. They're just encoded, but it's electricity. So if my duty of my brain is to send current to specific organs, then in a sense, cancer could be looked at as you're baking your own tissue over the years. Because remember, although I'm 63, there's not a 63-year-old cell in my body. I'm always producing brand new cells 9 months or shorter. However, if the value of that damage is overriding how quickly I can reproduce cells, then that's what I believe cancer is. And remember, you can't get cancer on your heart. Okay. No one gets heart cancer. And it's the biggest field in that, that blue ball they put around us, the toroidal field, right? That's where they believe the brain is. So you brought up somatic body, or you ever hear of cymatics, where they shine or send a frequency to a plate and it makes a replicable pattern?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes,
then
I'm a huge
Dr.
fan of
Emoto's
art.
Yeah. And Dr. Emoto's work, you could put that down there for people to look at. But, just praying on water that has love on it, and then they freeze a crystal and it's always replicable, showing the same shape. And that's because it was imprinted like homeopathy with a frequency, a feeling. So that is what your body is. And the cymatics, remember, and yes, nothing that is living doesn't have this toroidal ball going around it. It goes through the top of your head and it goes through what we're calling chakras, are biological resistors. And then when you look at cymatics, the frequencies that are going through your DNA is creating an image of your body that's less than 1% theoretical matter, which means God. And then when you consider that we're made in his image, his imagination, and the main quote, like there's nothing that comes in with hundreds of times. I'm surprised they don't beat the snot out of this quote in the Bible. Do you know what the most common quote in the Bible is?
No, I don't.
By hundreds of times. Do not fear. The most important quote in the Bible, we hardly know. It's the most frequently mentioned. And then the rest of the Bible is how you don't fear things. So think about it. If we've never left God's field, why do you think he's telling us 365 times a year, that you don't need to fear? You are made of science. I mean, 90% of the things we fear never happen. And yet it can send us into cancer, alcoholism, just based on how we're splitting that signal, creating a demand that our biology is trying to satiate. Because remember, the science of your body is trying to balance positive and negative. And when you're feeling really like crap, you're trying to satiate that feeling. So if you lack the skills, that's when we go mechanistic. And it might be alcohol. It could be, how we talk to ourselves and wind up sending too much current to one tissue or the other, creating this disease or that. So remember, most of these diseases are based on the biggest part of your brain trying to adapt you. And we're not equipped to know to change our diet or to talk to somebody. We're so divided that our tribes have lost that communication. And knowing that these things are more real than what, common than what they are, and they should never reach the scale, but we don't talk. So that's why, what you're doing in your tribe is so very important because, I have technology that can help people with this. I don't get rid of alcoholism. I don't treat cancer. But if I get rid of their fight or flight, guess what kind of decisions they make then? They're empowered.
Grounded
decisions. They feel safe.
Right. Empowered choices. Empowered decisions. So I just want to circle back up to one quick thing that you said. When we are talking about an action versus a thought. So we could take action, and that would be taking an action of taking a drink, using a drug, whatever, to shift the way that we're feeling to get us out of discomfort and to get us to ease the pain or whatever you want to call it. There's the action, right? The physical action of ingesting something. And then there's also the thought process, because I heard you talk a lot about that even just the thought process, if we lean into the fear or the worrying or negative self-talk or negative self-beliefs, that can have the same impact on us physically as if we ingest the drink. Is that kind of what you were alluding to? And then I'd like to wrap up with the self-talk piece and how we can kind of shift and overcome that.
Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword at times because, the stimulus that comes in is based on our experience that we give it meaning. So, when I was raising my kids, they had school, they had studies, they had sports. And, if you think about the typical American life, we don't get the tribal time we used to. I mean, parents used to spend all that time. It's the skill sets, don't you think?
Absolutely.
And,
it's a balancing act.
And we live in America where we take less vacations and breaks. We're not hanging out with our family in the afternoon and 11 o'clock at night like they do in Europe, because they've seen this go on. This only lasts so long. This big American dream, and in that we spend or the pharmaceutical companies get 75% of their profits just from 4% of the population in America. This is what we are dealing with. Okay. So remember, it's not, God doesn't make bad hearts. God doesn't give us cancer. I'm sure he doesn't even use it to teach us a lesson, but it is our supernatural capacity to push through that level of resistance. Remember, it's harder to be sad than happy. It's easier to be successful than unsuccessful. I mean, all these things are true, but both of them require work. And it's not easy even to be in the positive zone, but it's easier work and more rewarding based on how you feel. So remember, the brain or your body is literally the safest place on earth. Okay. And we were created to handle all the stresses on planet Earth. And, by giving us the biggest part of your brain being emotions, that is your journey. So if we can accept that, these hard things that have sent us into the top end diseases, heart disease, cancer, and alcoholism, if we can accept that, that's kind of the program, and we really look at our ecosystem, then as we start to demonstrate signs that our body is, going into what they're calling disease, remember, it's really your capacity to endure that level of stress that you're witnessing. We're superhuman. You're not really sick. And by changing your life, if you were to remove and detect what that is, you have to remove, because remember, a lot of this is in our subconscious. But upon removing that from your life, I'm telling you, it looks like miracles, or that I'm curing people. I don't cure anyone. I've never healed anybody. Okay. But it would appear like that when we can help people to understand how perfect they are and remove the interference or noise cancel the software in your body. So just know that I mechanize things at my practice, but my goal is to teach you, you are completely capable of doing these things. It'd be kind of like if you and I ran the 4-minute mile and, I decide like Forrest Gump, I decide I just don't want to run anymore. If you wanted to run a 4-minute mile, you now know because you felt it, you could do it yourself. So that is my goal for my patients, is that you are very capable of the same results I'm getting. But in a sense, you also have to have the faith in your body that you are made of science. Your body's not only capable of going there. If you're made of science, science is reversible every time. Science works every time. It doesn't work one out of so many people. It works every time. And you're made of that. I want you to feel safe in your body.
Wow, I love that. And I'm going to have to wrap us up here, but this has just been a fascinating conversation. And I can just say from my own healing journey, I used a methodology called Psych K, and it's about, subconscious integrative therapy and reprogramming the subconscious brain. And just my small experience that I've had personally with that therapy, it is like a miracle. It is like working a miracle. It rewrote programs that I had been operating on since a child. And it also created a ripple effect throughout my entire life. And it even created a ripple effect of perception of traumatic experiences throughout my entire life. So I believe fully in what it is that you're sharing with us, and it is science, and I can't wait to experience it for myself. And I absolutely think that it can feel a lot like a miracle, because I feel like a miracle has happened in my life. And so if it can happen for me, it can definitely happen for you, right?
Yes. And, our life is a miracle. I mean, we're just made that well. Yeah. I appreciate me, being a part of your community. And I thank you for having us on, allow us to talk what I'm very passionate about. I hope I wasn't too sciencey, because in my practice, we have a blast. We have, Renee. And
Yes, that's how we got
we have,
connected, from a good friend of mine that I've had for many, many years. So I'm just so grateful she connected us.
and we have a lovely team of people that at our age, we've been through a lot of things. And when people go through cancer and some of the, alcoholism and whatnot, do you want to be coached by people who never had the experience and does not know how it feels? Or do you want to be with people who have gone through it? That means 100% success. And they have a way of doing it, a way you can entertain and make it yours. So, you and I share, this teacher position. And, I really believe that I don't know, the awareness of what you and I just shared today, we have a lot of common language, that we can build the faith in, ourselves again, that we're indivisible. And I think if we can do that, a lot of people can work, out of their own issues and know that, they're highly performing, not really ill. Does that make sense?
Love that. I love that take on it, that we're still performing. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're just choosing a pathway that maybe may not be as supportive, but we're still operating the way that we're supposed to be operating. And so thank you for making that clarification, and also for being on the show today. I'm fascinated by the work that you're doing, and I know that it's impacting some amazing people and their lives. And also, let me take that a step further, is that the technology, being able to educate people so that they can heal themselves, is fantastic. And that's what we're all about on this podcast. So I can't wait for my opportunity to come and experience that for myself. And hopefully that'll be soon. And then maybe we can get you back on the podcast and share the outcome, the experience, and everything else. See if maybe Renee can get involved too. That could be a lot of fun.
It will be huge. You'll have a lot to share. I can't wait.
All right, Jesse, thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for being a part of the Booze Free Babes community. And thank you for all the amazing work that you do. We appreciate you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Bye-bye.